They make a really good and famous cinnamon scone. It is a very good product. They have won awards for it. It's a big deal. But there were 79 people on it that had become fans of the cinnamon scone before he realized that this was even out there. Now that's off the back of a good product, there's no doubt about it. He knew nothing about it. He didn't have to do anything about it. It had just arrived out there. Kids had gone away to university, had been used to those cinnamon scones, and had then come back and had their cinnamon, missed the cinnamon scone. So they'll go onto Facebook and so this thing happened without him knowing anything about it. So if a bad thing is going on in your business, the same thing will happen. I mean, we all know, particularly within restaurants, there's some horror stories in terms of people having a bad meal and then just jumping online, having a rant about it. Then the owner comes on, actually no, this is a specific story that I know about this, comes on and argues with that person. And this turns into a big argument in one of those sites. And that is still the #1 search result on Amazon, on Google for his name because it turned into a big thing. He can't do anything about it. Now, he's a feisty, cantankerous wee man. And it doesn't, and he will always argue, but it's going to destroy his business unless he calms down and just manages to sort of work with the business in a way that he understands that this stuff is happening. It's going on anyway. You kind of have to try and engage with it. A recruitment agency to get them managers, and they stopped because they got 17 contacts through this by direct message, and they filled the job. And they got 4 people from across the border, the UK and the mainland. And I suddenly forgot where I was there. I'm still on this side. And so he hadn't intended that to be the case. His whole theory is he knows that his customers are sitting there, most of them, at their desks every day and they're bored. He will just simply be putting up various generally interesting comments every day about stuff that they're doing, pictures and all of those things. And it's for nothing more than to make sure that it's in front of his customers on a daily basis. That's all he's trying to do. He knows that those customers will see his thing, whether they click on it or not, it's just there every day. He experimented with this, and his outcome then became he saved money on recruitment and got good staff. This is a massive business in, I think it's in San Francisco, I'm not sure where it is, but this business is a Twitter-based business. It's a taco truck. It's a big concept that's come out over there. And these taco trucks go out and they go on the different legislation in terms of what they have over here, but they can go out onto the streets and serve these tacos. And they brought in chefs to do it. They weren't just pikey wee men, pulling out fish and chips or bad food. It's very good food, but it's not outstanding food by any means. But they built up this following, which is 65,000 people, on Twitter, and the only way that you can get a taco from them and find out where they're going to be is through Twitter. You cannot contact them in any other way. So they will put up this stuff, no line here at Fullerton, we'll be closing at 11:45. Now, generally, they're saying no line because there are huge lines generally in terms of where they are. So they will have just arrived there. There's no line, and people are literally running down the road to try and get these bloody tacos when there are countless places that are out there paying rates. I don't know how it works in the States, but paying, proper sites because they've built up this scarcity thing. They've built up exclusivity. And there's a lot of that going on Twitter. And whether your model works within that or not, I don't know. But that concept of doing something slightly elitist, as long as obviously it's a good product, can manage to be very, very beneficial for your business. This is a business that basically doubled his coffee shop business within about 2 or 3 months purely by using Twitter. Now, he got in very early as well. And again, the clever thing about him is he basically, somebody tweeted and said, would it be possible to have a sandwich ready for me and I'll pick it up on my way to work? And he thought, yeah, I can do that. They were monitoring the Twitter thing constantly. And it was the first time that had ever happened on Twitter. So he was doing deliveries or collections via Twitter. And he then did Twitter nights where only the Twitter people that were following would come along, and it's kind of a coffee shop bar. But he did lots of clever things in terms of giving information away about his business and engaging with his customers through Twitter. And then he spun it off massively onto mainstream PR. So he got covered in the Harvard Business Review and all that stuff. Lots of big business magazines covered him. But that wasn't the important thing. The important thing was, and it's a little bit like my golf, getting a business story in the Belfast Telegraph is really of no benefit to me in terms of selling books. But getting the residual stuff off the back of that, getting coverage in the golf magazines is of huge benefit to me. He got lots and lots of local PR as well. If you look in on his story, it looks very exciting in terms of Harvard Business Review. That's not going to sell a cup of coffee for him. but the local PR that he got is going to sell a lot of cups of coffee from him. He's gone on to become a really big kind of social media guru out there now and sold out of the business. He did extremely well out of it. But again, the points come down. It was about engagement. It was about getting people on his side. It was about giving them stuff that was beneficial to them. And it was about people wanting to be part of that thing. Hey, we're part of this crowd, you know. I wanted to do the Gary Vaynerchuk story. I'm not sure. Did Jamie do Gary Vaynerchuk at all earlier on? Gary Vaynerchuk's an interesting guy in the States. And so those are all relatively small businesses. And the interesting thing about all of this is what you have to try and do is think, well, which bits of that stuff can apply to my business? Where can I take some of these things and apply that across? So there's lots of wee small businesses out there that have done well. Gary Vaynerchuk had a £2 million business, $2 million business in New York, a wine business. And he decided to start to do daily wine videos. And they were relatively basic to begin with. But that's episode, I think that's, September the 17th, he had done 920 episodes. So he literally sat there and did 10-minute videos every single day about wine. And a lot of the wines were not even wines that he sold. He's a very interesting character. He talked about the New York Jets. His whole ethos is to try and buy the New York Jets. Lots of personality. He's kind of a bit over the top. He's a bit New York in terms of that sort of ebullience. And so he did this, and the business went from 2 million to 60 million last year. And that was through nothing more than huge engagement on all of the social media channels. I mean, he literally never stops working. But that's the, as I say, constant and relentless engagement. Now, I talk about, it's very, to do, you can sell through these mediums as long as you've given away vast amounts of information in the run up to it. So he did a test, whenever, I don't know, through Twitter it was. And he spent $7,500 in billboard, radio, and direct mail, and got, from the offer that he was doing, he got 710 orders. He did 2 or 3 tweets on Twitter and got 1,700 orders. He spent no money at all in terms of the promotion on the Twitter, and spent, as I say, $7,500 in traditional advertising and marketing. I was sitting with a friend of mine who is head of TV in one of the big London agencies, advertising agencies last week, and she was telling me that they had just spent, for one of the whiskey companies, they had just spent £800,000 creating a new ad. And I realized that I had seen the previous version of the ad many, many times at home and had no idea what it was for. So that's a massive example of non-outcome focused marketing. £800,000 is an utterly preposterous amount of money to spend in terms of, promoting a business. Now, it's a worldwide whiskey brand. I can't stand here and say, look, I sold a few books and criticize that. But there needs to become an acceptance by a lot of those bigger companies quite soon that you can get huge results by properly engaging with the market out there and not by spending 800 grand. Now, that's in the production of a 30-second commercial, a 30 and a 60-second commercial. That's not on the media spend, which will probably be 3 or 4 million. So millions and millions of pounds being spent to promote a whiskey brand just within the UK. He created a medium-sized business and turned it into a monster business, as I say, within that whole concept. So why do people use the internet? They use it for information and interaction. That's basically what they're looking for. And that's why social media works so well. People are constantly now using these channels. I'm sure Jamie covered some of this. A lot of the search is now not necessarily going through Google. As Richard says, that doesn't mean that Google shouldn't be used, but lots of people will go to YouTube, for example, and search directly for how do I stop, a slice or something like that. People will go directly to YouTube rather than going to Google for that. So all of this information, you need to be providing information. Very rarely are people going to the internet. They're doing a bit more now, but very rarely are people going to the internet and thinking, I'm going to go to the internet and buy something. Most of the time, they're going for one of those two things. And it's up to you to then sort of interrupt that in a soft, slow, and gentle way to try and sell them something. So, rules. The basic rules are listen, engage, educate, entertain, and don't sell. Those are the ways that you kind of need to use social media in an effort to ultimately end up with this soft sell afterwards. I say don't sell to an extent with an exclamation mark because you do sell a wee bit, but you just don't go on and rant about it. As I say, I know lots of people that sometimes after I do these talks will then go out there and they'll set up a Twitter page or they'll set up a Facebook page and they'll simply talk about me, me, me. One of the messages that has come through today from nearly everybody is all of this web-based communication cannot be about me, me, me. Even no matter how much you want it to be, it needs to be about you. It needs to be about the customer all the time, and then gradually get them on side and slowly sell to them. So the listening is about trying to see if they're talking about your business, whatever size it is, what are they saying, and then trying to engage with that, trying to deal with the issues, customer service issues, all of those things. Educating in terms of providing information to them that is relevant to what it is they're after. So from my golf perspective, it's about, it's about basic golf tips. From my coffee shop consultancy, I'm giving away stacks and stacks and stacks of free content in an effort to ultimately get people into higher level coaching, consulting groups, buying high ticket price items. Entertaining, you kind of have to have that personality thing. You need to be providing interesting information. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go out there and become a comedian, but you can then find YouTube videos, for example, that relate through to your market and be putting those out there so that, use other funny people rather than necessarily. It's very difficult if you go on there and try and be funny all the time. And as I say, the sell thing, you can sort of sell, I'm not sure where I got this from, I might have got this from Jamie the last time, sort of sell to an extent in the software every 1 in 10 tweets. So that's the basic principle. Now, what I'm kind of saying is, these events, this is the last talk at this event, and I go to these on a relatively regular basis, and you get all this great information, and then you make your notes, and then you think, right, that was great, that was fascinating, what am I going to do off the back of that? Well, I watched Richard earlier on going through his massive amount of amazing information. That sounds very sycophantic, but I actually sat there and I scribbled for Ulster in terms of the information because it was so good. And I will be using what he has done to then go through to my coffee shop crowd, and I will almost certainly not credit him in any way, obviously. I'll be trying to pretend I'm as clever as he is. No problem. But what I wanted to do is go back and look at his Google search detail. So in terms of the outcome, what you have to then think is, what am I going to take out of all of this? And to an extent, I wanted to try and show briefly in the last few minutes that I've got, what you could do. This is one potential outcome. And I would say that aspects of this could potentially be applied to most of your businesses out there. One of the crucial things to do is then not think, oh, I couldn't do that, it doesn't work for me, that wouldn't work for me, that wouldn't work for me, that business is different, that business is different. I would imagine if we sat down with most of your businesses in a period of time, we could look at nearly every aspect of what we've talked about and say, that would work, that would work, that would work, that would work. It wouldn't all work. But if you were to devote within your business or whatever size, or whether you do it yourself, whether you get somebody else to do it here, whether you farm some of this stuff off to the Philippines, or whether you engage Pierce to do some of these things for you. We were joking with Mike earlier on about if you can't write copy, get somebody else in to do that, or learn how to write copy. It's not that difficult. If you were to cover all of these within a year by, for example, setting up something that you might sell within a Google Shopping Merchant Center. If you were able to go in there and set up something, that is going to dramatically then start to improve your everything score within Google. If you were to start to get pictures of whatever it is that you do and start to work with Facebook, TwitPic, Flickr, a lot of these sites that are out there, just in terms of getting them properly tagged and out there, in terms of your product, it wouldn't take that long. And other uses of your product, similar products that are tagged somehow through to you, as long as you're getting permissions for these things, you would then start to come up much higher within the pictures. If you were to work on 1 or 2 videos, that's why I asked him earlier on, what would be the #1 thing to try and focus on? I presumed it was going to be video. I think arguably he would then say, look, you know what, you kind of got to do it all. It's different for each business. But video is the really, really big thing, as I say. The fascinating thing is I got the deal for the film actually through a video thing. The market is shifting towards that. It doesn't have to be you yourself necessarily putting all of that information out there. Greg was saying earlier on he's not comfortable with speaking, but they have a very good public speaker. There might be somebody within your business, if you're not comfortable yourself, in terms of getting that information out there. But you really need to be harnessing video. If you were putting out a couple of videos a week that related to your product somehow, and as I say, give away your best stuff. Give away associated stuff with your product that is of benefit to the customer. Give away that. It's like, start with what the customer has in their mind first. Think what it is that they want and the broader things that are related to your product, and become this trusted person. So a couple of videos a week. It takes 15 minutes to put yourself in Google Places properly. It literally does. It's no time at all. Press releases.